Imagine this: you've spent years, perhaps even decades, without a romantic relationship. You may think that this would weaken you, that it would rob you of the very essence of your being. But what if I told you that the longer you are without a relationship, the more you have the potential to truly understand the complexity of who you are? What if this solitude is not the prison it may seem, but actually the forge in which your identity, resilience, and wisdom are being crafted? Stay with me, because in this exploration we'll unravel the layers of solitude and uncover how time, rather than robbing you, can gift you something far greater. By the end of this speech, you might just see being alone as one of the greatest opportunities for transformation you could ever have. Time, that invisible force we so often take for granted, shapes the way we live, the way we love, and indeed the way we learn to exist in this world. When a man has been without a relationship for a prolonged period, the passage of time itself becomes a teacher. It forces him to confront the uncomfortable truths about his own desires, his emotional patterns, and his very essence. In the absence of another person's gaze, in the absence of someone to share his heart with, he is left with one inescapable reality. He must now reckon with himself, and this is where the real challenge begins. It's easy to convince oneself that time spent alone is wasted time, that without the companionship of a partner, life is incomplete. But if we stop for a moment and look deeper, we realize that time in this context has a unique capacity to show us something far more profound than we might ever expect. What happens during this waiting period is not mere stagnation, not simply a holding pattern where nothing changes. It is, in fact, a fertile space for introspection, for growth, for the questioning of who we truly are beyond the expectations of others. A man who has been without a relationship for an extended time is, in some ways, liberated from the pressures of playing a role, from the scripts that society hands him about what it means to be loved, to be desired, to be needed. The absence of another person's presence forces him to look inward, to ask the difficult questions about his own values, his own desires, and what truly brings him peace and fulfillment. The clock ticks, and with each passing moment he is left with the quiet space to explore what is authentic to him beyond the influence of others. And it is here, in this silence, that the possibility of transformation begins to take root, waiting for him to uncover it. In the absence of a relationship, a man often finds himself face to face with a deeper, more intricate longing, one that has nothing to do with external circumstances, but is rooted in his very nature. Without the distraction of a romantic partner, the desires he has long buried beneath the surface begin to emerge. They are not merely desires for companionship or affection, but are often unspoken yearnings for purpose, for self-validation, and for understanding. These desires compel him to ask, what is it that I truly seek in life, and what am I willing to give in return? The absence of a partner doesn't just leave him with an emotional void. It exposes the complexity of his inner world, bringing to light the contradictions within himself. There is the longing for intimacy, yes, but there is also a yearning for independence, for freedom from the expectations that come with being in a relationship. As the days, months, and years pass, the need to explore and understand these desires becomes increasingly unavoidable. It's almost as if the universe, through time, is forcing him to reckon with the deeper aspects of his being. The man who has been without a relationship for an extended period begins to realize that the answers to these questions are not found outside of him, but within. He must explore the nature of his own wants and fears to distinguish between those desires that stem from true authenticity and those that are merely shaped by societal conditioning. This introspection often leads to a sense of discomfort, for it is in this space that he uncovers parts of himself he may have long ignored. Yet it is also within this discomfort that he begins to confront the most profound aspects of his identity, what he values, what he seeks, and how he relates to the world around him. Solitude, when extended over time, becomes a crucible for self-discovery and growth. The longer a man remains without a romantic partner, the more he is invited to become self-sufficient in ways he may never have anticipated. Without the presence of another person to fulfill his emotional needs, he must learn to navigate the landscape of his own heart and mind. In a relationship, much of one's emotional energy can be shared, reflected, and balanced through interaction with a partner. But in solitude, there is no one to lean on, no one to validate feelings, and no one to mirror emotions. Instead, a man learns to cultivate his own strength to address his fears, his doubts, and his insecurities without seeking reassurance from the outside world. He must learn to be content with his own company, to discover peace within himself rather than relying on external sources of affirmation. This process of self-sufficiency is not without its challenges. There are moments of deep loneliness, when the absence of another's touch, voice, or presence can feel unbearable. Yet it is precisely in these moments that a man is forced to confront the depth of his own emotional landscape. In time, he begins to realize that the answers to his inner struggles are not to be found in another person, but within himself. He learns to soothe his own anxieties, to calm his own restless thoughts, and to find meaning in the quiet spaces of his life. This growing self-sufficiency is not about becoming isolated or detached from the world, but rather about developing a sense of internal balance, a trust in his own ability to navigate the complexities of life. He begins to recognize that, while relationships can offer joy and connection, they should never be the sole source of his sense of self-worth. Instead, he comes to understand that true strength lies in his ability to stand alone, to be whole within himself, and to approach the world not from a place of need, but from a place of inner peace and completeness. A long period without a relationship forces a man to grapple with the question of identity in ways that would otherwise remain buried beneath the surface. In the absence of a romantic partner, there is no longer a defined role to play, no partner to share in daily life, no expectations to fulfill. This lack of external definition prompts a deep introspection. Who am I when I am not defined by another person? The roles we take on in relationships, whether as a lover, partner, or spouse, often become a large part of our identity. But when these roles are removed, what remains? This absence can be both a liberation and a challenge. On the one hand, a man is free from the confines of societal expectations and the labels others have placed on him. On the other hand, he is left to face the raw, unfiltered version of himself, free from the distractions of external validation. As he navigates this period of solitude, he may begin to realize that his identity has been shaped in large part by the influence of relationships. How others perceive him, how he fits into the structure of family or social norms. Without these external influences, he is faced with the task of constructing a new sense of self, one that is independent of romantic labels. This is a profound process, one that often brings with it a sense of both loss and liberation. There is a kind of freedom in shedding the roles that once defined him, yet this freedom can also bring about a sense of emptiness, a feeling of being untethered from the world. Yet it is in this untethered state that he has the potential to discover who he truly is, unencumbered by the expectations of others. He has the chance to redefine himself from within, to explore what truly matters to him, and to build an identity that is authentic and not dictated by the dynamics of a relationship. The question becomes not, who am I in relation to others, but who am I when I stand alone? Emotional resilience is perhaps one of the most profound qualities developed during long periods without a relationship. When a man has been alone for an extended time, he is forced to face his emotional world head on, often in ways that are both painful and transformative. There is no partner to offer support, no one to comfort him during difficult moments, no one to share the burden of emotional weight. Instead, he must learn to carry these emotional experiences on his own, building strength and resilience from within. This process isn't easy. It requires confronting feelings of loneliness, sadness, frustration, and even despair, all of which naturally arise when there is a lack of romantic companionship. Yet, it is precisely through facing these emotions, rather than avoiding or numbing them, that a man begins to build a deeper emotional fortitude. As he learns to navigate his emotional landscape without external validation, he begins to develop a greater understanding of his own vulnerabilities. He comes to see that emotional pain is not something to be feared or avoided, but rather an inevitable part of the human experience. In time, he learns to sit with discomfort, to allow emotions to arise and pass without letting them define him. He learns that he does not need someone else to soothe him, but rather that he has the capacity to soothe, to heal, and to grow stronger from his own experiences. This emotional resilience also deepens his empathy as he becomes more attuned to the pain and struggles of others. Having faced his own emotional battles in solitude, he is able to approach the world with a greater sense of compassion and understanding. Through this emotional journey, a man comes to realize that his strength is not derived from external sources, whether a partner, family, or friends, but from within himself. He learns that true resilience lies not in avoiding pain, but in embracing it, learning from it, and using it to cultivate a deeper sense of emotional maturity. In the absence of a relationship, he discovers the incredible power that comes from standing firm in the face of life's emotional storms, knowing that he has the inner resources to weather them and emerge stronger on the other side. The paradox of desire and fear becomes increasingly pronounced the longer a man remains without a relationship. As time stretches on, the desire for connection intensifies. He yearns for the companionship, intimacy, and emotional fulfillment that only a relationship can bring. Yet, this very longing is often met with an equally powerful fear, a fear of vulnerability, a fear of losing independence, a fear of being hurt or disappointed. These conflicting emotions create a complex inner battle, one that is often not fully understood by those who have not spent significant time alone. On the one hand, there is a deep craving for connection, a pull toward love and partnership, but on the other hand, there is a reluctance to give up the hard, one sense of independence that comes from solitude. This fear of vulnerability is perhaps the most insidious aspect of the paradox. After spending a long period of time in solitude, a man may begin to feel that his emotional autonomy is a source of strength. He has learned to rely on himself, to live without the crutch of romantic relationships. The prospect of opening himself up to another person, with all the potential for heartache and disappointment that this entails, becomes a daunting thought. The idea of letting someone in, of allowing himself to be emotionally exposed, can trigger a deep fear of loss and rejection. Yet at the same time, there is an undeniable yearning for the very thing he fears. This creates a tension between the desire for connection and the fear of what it might cost. Over time, this paradox forces a man to confront his own contradictions. He must ask himself whether his fear is truly protective or whether it is simply a defense mechanism that has developed in response to past hurt or rejection. The challenge becomes not in eliminating the fear, but in learning to navigate it, to understand it, and to decide whether the potential rewards of connection are worth the risks of vulnerability. In this way, the longer a man has been without a relationship, the more he is confronted with the truth that love is not a simple answer to loneliness, but a complex and sometimes terrifying journey that requires both courage and acceptance. In conclusion, the longer a man has been without a relationship, the more he is given the opportunity to explore the depths of his own existence. Time in solitude is not merely an absence of connection, but a profound journey of self-discovery, growth, and emotional resilience. It forces him to confront his inner world, his desires, his fears, and his identity in ways that relationships often mask or distract from. While loneliness may seem like a weakness to some, it is, in fact, a fertile ground for cultivating inner strength, self-sufficiency, and emotional maturity. Through solitude, a man learns to stand alone, to navigate his own emotions, and to find peace within himself. And yet, this journey is never without its contradictions. The desire for connection grows, even as the fear of vulnerability intensifies. It is in these moments of tension that the greatest lessons are learned about the nature of love, the importance of self-worth, and the strength that comes from embracing both independence and the longing for human connection. Ultimately, the longer a man has been without a relationship, the more he is prepared to face the complexity of love with a deeper understanding of himself and with a greater ability to approach the world with both vulnerability and strength.